many of you have listened to the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast? I can't tell you that reaction, how much that means to us.
Welcome back to the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Brennan. Join us as we wrestle with what it takes to transform ourselves and the businesses we lead. This new camera angle makes my arms look smaller than yours.
I'm noticing that, and I really appreciate it. I thought you did that on purpose.
No, I don't. I didn't, and I am not happy with it. So, my bro, we have kind of a fun show today.
Yeah.
Guys, hey, before we jump into the show, I just want to test something out. Okay, I know a lot of you that listen to the show, you know who Chris and I are. You're part of our sphere. We've brushed elbows somehow in the past. For those of you that maybe this is the first time keying in, and you're like, who are these a-holes? Why would I even bother thinking or listening? No. Well, Chris is the a-hole, not me. But
jeez,
why would you listen? So here's the reality, guys, is that Chris and I have spent the last 13, 15 years, respectively, building teams in this particular industry. The teams that we've built, led, the teams that we currently work with, many of them are in the 8 and 9 figure size in terms of revenue that they're generating. And along the way, we've both earned our stripes and our battle scars, and we've shared some beautiful experiences with a lot of very smart entrepreneurs to develop the rest of our toolkit, our worldview, and our professional view in terms of business and how to build service brands. So that's where this comes from. This show specifically is just designed for us to cover the topics that cover the rest of who we are as entrepreneurs. So we get into the tactical stuff from time to time, and a lot of times we're talking about the mind, body, soul. The rest of us as a human that's committed to our business and the one sacrificing often to build the platforms that we're investing our time and energy in. So just real quick, that's who we are. It's where we come from. It's why we talk about the stuff we talk about. So hopefully that's enough to pique your curiosity and make you listen to this show and maybe another one. But dude, today we're talking to us, literally the definition of serial entrepreneur, Rocky Hensley of now one Tom Plumber, and previously a lot of companies, but specifically Icon Restoration.
That was a very pastoral sort of introduction. It was like an opener. Yeah.
I was just talking to Wayne about it. It's so goofy. You guys are so funny. When you listen to the show, you guys hear we basically just kind of think out loud. But Wayne was like, "Hey, bro, what makes you think that if somebody's never listened to a podcast, they'd want to stick around when you guys literally start your show by saying, 'Hey, dude,' and they know nothing else?" It's like, okay, that might be kind of fair. So there was a brief intro, if you will, on who we are.
That's good.
Why we do?
Maybe I'll take a stab at that next time. All right.
we'll peek pod.
So this podcast with Rocky, I told you before we came on, I actually thought, the intention was to talk more one Tom Plumber.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And which, you and I are both fans of and just fascinated by, newer franchise. We have a number of clients that are one Tom Plumber franchises and restoration companies and
more
blah, blah, blah. But this quickly turned it more into like an entrepreneur profile, which was super fun.
Yeah.
Hence the name of the podcast.
Yes.
Which no doubt grabbed several of your attention. You're like, well, shit, I have to listen to it now.
You got to listen to that one.
I got to listen to this
one.
This
thing goes. Yeah.
But it was truly a lot of fun. And Rocky's a fascinating person. You and I've had time to hang out with him in person and break bread with him.
Yeah.
Ride in his cars. He's kind of a car enthusiast.
He is. EV car.
Yeah. He's an EV guy, and it's those are a hoot. But yeah, we got into a really robust conversation, not only about the various businesses he started, many of which are outside of the restoration industry and plumbing. But we really dug into like systems, processes, accountability.
Oh man.
Some of the real structural items that have made his restoration company successful over a long period of time.
Yeah.
But also kind of what drives the success, it sounds like, of one Tom Plumbing as well. I mean, it all fits together, you know?
Yeah.
So it was really good.
It's a great show. I think we cover a lot of interesting elements. I think there's something in it for all of us as key leaders and business owners. And in general, you guys will hear that Rocky in many ways is just like us. His mind's going a million different directions.
Yes.
He's got weaknesses and strengths just like the rest of us. And he's found a way to commit to a specific line that builds businesses he wants to own. And I think you're going to hear a lot of really great reasons why and how he's able to do it. And I think it will challenge some of our own assumptions and mental models for how it gets done. Anyways, it's a great show. He is literally an entrepreneur in spirit and definition. We've seen it. We've been up next to it, and the guy does exactly what he talks about, and he does it day in and day out. And it ultimately has accumulated into more than 11 organizations that he's grown, built, started, and sold. And then, of course, he's knees deep in building out One Tom as a franchise model, and then Icon Restoration, doing business and doing it well. So let's get into it. Well, Rocky, thanks for joining us, my friend. I know that you are currently not looking for new things to fill your time with, prepping for annual, but thanks for jumping on with us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Yeah,
it's fun. It's been a minute.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so one of the things that stuck out to Chris and I when we came and met you guys in person and had a chance to hang out with your team was there was a lot of backstory pre-Icon Restoration and pre-One Tom that really defined a lot of who you were, and you were not afraid to talk about both the upside and the downside to that. So I thought that's where we'd start.
sure.
Give us like your version of the story of what built Rocky prior to Icon and One Tom.
Well, I'm like most entrepreneurs, man, didn't have a hugely structured past. I mean, I was out on my own when I was 17 years old. My last day of high school, I was taken out in handcuffs because I got in a pretty good fight, and got my GED and a little bit of college, and figured that there's only one person I can count on, and it's this guy. And just figured out that I was never going to make a lot of money climbing a corporate ladder with the GED and a little bit of college, and struck out on my own and started picking up cardboard bales behind a Walmart on a Saturday. And the next thing I know, I built the company to 5 million, sold it off. And when I got that check, I was like, hey, that's pretty freaking cool, man. Let's do that again. And now I've done it 11 times. And, I love the battle. I love the structure. I love the, bringing in the right team, moving people around, organizing the chaos. That's why I love the restoration business so much. And, built and sold 11 businesses along the way. And one of them, I sold in 2004. It was a $110 million a year company. And I was never more miserable, to be honest with you. Isn't that funny? Like, I was never more successful, never making more money. And I was horrible. So I sold it and got a check when I was 38 years old for more money than I ever dreamed. Got to be a father. I had two young kids, and didn't have the pressures of, making mortgages and things like that anymore in my life. And I got to be a dad, I got to be a better husband because I was around all the time. You know what it's like when you start a business, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. My wife used to joke that the kids called me Uncle Rocky, yeah, because they'd see me on the weekends, maybe, so. But that's our life. You guys have lived it. Most people on this podcast have lived it, but it did make me realize that who I was, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I hated being a businessman. I know that sounds weird.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
That's an interesting comment.
Oh, it's a great, okay. My life became forecasting and budgeting and boardrooms and dealing with HR and just the minutia of running a business with 170 employees, and traveling around. And you were always traveling around fixing, this location or that location, or, it was just constant, just a constant battle. And then I ended up having two partners that helped me get there, and they were so monumental. I gave them both 10% for $5,000. So technically they bought in. And once they had the word partner in their name, within a year and a half, I sold it because it became so miserable. We worked together so well when I was the boss and I was the guy, and they were pushing forward my vision. But once they became owners, whether it was their wives or friends or other employees, manipulating them into trying to manipulate me, and it was just a constant battle. Sometimes I was fighting both of them. Sometimes I was fighting one. Sometimes I was the middle guy between the fight. It was horrible. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was driving in one day, and how I knew I was going to sell it because I'd literally got one of those brand new Jaguar convertibles. I'm driving in, and the thought of going into this business that I built that was literally putting in $30,000 to $40,000 a month into my pocket. I pulled over, opened the door, and because I thought I was going to throw up, and I'm not that guy, you know. So I got into the office, told my assistant Tammy, said, get me on the phone with nothing but business brokers. And within a 2.5 months, I was sitting across a subsidiary, which of a Berkshire Hathaway company, which was Better Home and Garden. And I sold off all 3 companies. They were all tied in together.
Yeah.
And I got another quick funny story, like, you know, because we made the sacrifices along the way, like I was telling you earlier, you know, for a month and a half along the way of not taking a paycheck for 4 months, we didn't have water. You know, we're throwing empty milk jugs in the back of the Intrepid, going over to my mother's-in-law, filling them up, coming back, because that's how we'd have to heat it up to take showers for literally a month and a half. But and so my wife was with this struggle. I delivered pizzas at night for 4.5 years. Well, because I need money for diapers. I had 2 kids in diapers. So, you know, and I go on and on about my struggles, but I look back on them and I loved them because I figured it out. You know, I had to make those mistakes along the way. And it probably took longer than it would a person that was college educated or classically trained, but we figured it out, you know. But I told my wife, I'm done. I can't take this anymore. I'm selling the business. I was on the phone with business brokers. I came home. She literally cried. Was like, don't do this. So, you know, we finally made it. We've done the struggles. I'm taking care of the home. You take care of work, this, that, and the other. And about a month later, I got a letter of intent from this company.
Oh yeah.
And I took it home and I showed it to her because, you know, she's my spouse. She really needs to make those decisions with me. Looked at the letter. You know what she said? And I apologize, but I'm about to cuss. She goes, don't fuck this up. Yeah. Yeah. So it went from tears a month and a half later to my letter of intent. And she's like, you do not screw this up. So
she saw the commas.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a couple commas in that letter that stuck out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gosh, you were 38 when that happened, Rocky?
Yeah, when I sold that business. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. You know, it's funny that you know, you kind of were dogging on yourself in terms of barely getting out of high school, you know, and getting a little bit of college. Where's the instincts? Where did that come from? Because it doesn't sound like you were nurtured in your family in such a way that promoted it. But what did that look like?
You know, from the time I was 12, if I ever wanted anything, I grew up country. I grew up in Crittenden, Kentucky, population 460. Wow. And, you know, if you wanted anything, my parents weren't going to buy it for me. So I was out literally cutting tobacco, hanging tobacco, putting up hay from 12 years till I left when I was 17 years old or 16. I left it right before I turned 17 because I had a very abusive dad, you know, and, you know, when you're at that point, you don't want to really feel like if you didn't really do anything wrong, you don't want to get beat on. So I left and I actually lived in an alley for 10 days and ate out of garbage cans, you know. But my motivation was from that point forward, I loved work. I loved getting the money. I loved when I was 12 years old, I worked for $2 a day back then. You know, that was in the mid to late 70s, and $2 a day was all the money in the world, you know. And if I'd worked 10 hours, I took a $20 bill home. Back then, when you're 12 years old, that was like everything. You work a whole week, you had $100. Oh my God, I was the richest person in the room, you know. And so I loved the money. I loved the work. I never minded the work. Growing up on the farm, you know, we had a 180-acre farm where we raised horses and stuff. You just learn to work. You don't have a choice to work. So it's just part of my DNA. And I always loved people. You know, always loved interacting, but more importantly, I love hearing other people's stories, you know, because you'll find most entrepreneurs, as you guys know, have a story like I have, you know. Otherwise they're going to be a corporate raider somewhere, you know, or they're going to be an accountant somewhere or a doctor. But people who are money motivated and want to be successful in life that aren't classically trained or Harvard or some of these other things, most entrepreneurs have the same story I have, just different, you know. And I love hearing those stories. That's why I love the restoration business, because we've all got some story like that, you know. It was just that motivated me. It drove me. It made me realize too that if I ever want anything in life, you're counting on this guy, and you get some great people around you, and there's nothing that you can't do, and so, and honestly, those two guys, I give them most of the credit for where we went, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. They were the classically trained.
Okay.
One of them graduated from DePaul, and the other one graduated from Princeton, and part of my job was just to okay most of what they were doing. Just became a personality conflict once they became owners. It wasn't because they got stupid all of a sudden, So I hired great people, stayed out of the way, give them what they needed, stayed to my strength, and that was leading people and selling and motivating. That's those. I'm really good at those three things. I'm really suck at probably most of everything else in the world. But I picked up something early from those guys and mentors. I've always had mentors. It's the reason you're there every day is to have profit. Absolutely, to have profit. You can't pay the most. You can't give the guys the best uniforms. You can't have the best trucks, equipment, unless you have profit. So if you're not focusing on profit and motivating yourself and the company based on profit, why bother? Okay, because you make them good profit. You're taking care of your people. I as you guys know, you've been to my place. I pay 20% more market. We rotate new trucks out every 3 to 5 years. Equipment, we rotate every 3 years. You can't have the best equipment. You can't give them that culture if you don't make profit. And so we bring them into that. So I've always been really profit driven.
Yeah.
More so, here's my thing. And sorry to get a little preachy here, but culture is number one. Period. I don't care what kind of business you have, how much money you make. If you don't have great people, you don't have camaraderie, you don't have people looking out for each other. We always say my brother's keeper. You don't have that. It doesn't matter how much profit you make. You're just going to be rotating people out. So, and two is accountability. Even more important than profit is accountability. You got to hold people accountable to your system. And if you're not, then you're constantly fixing things So accountability, in my opinion, is number two, but also they have to hold you accountable. If you're telling them you're going to give them all these things, you're going to make more than anyone else in this market. You're going to have the best equipment. You're going to have the best uniforms. I'm going to give you the best product to sell. And you're not, their job's to hold me accountable. And then third and fourth is profit. You got culture, accountability, and profit. You can win anything. I could sell widgets with that formula and win. I really believe that, and I've done it time and time again. You know my history and the 1-800 pack outs and the 859 board up, and and that first business I did was a recycling company, and then I built and sold a solar company, so on and so forth. And then my big win in 2004 was mortgage and titling. And we had grown so big that we were literally securitizing, building 10 loans, 7 B through D, which now we know it was really F, And then we put 3 conforming loans, which was the A customer in there, and we securitized and sold them on Wall Street. I mean, that's how much business we were doing. And you're looking at a guy that didn't graduate from high school, that had a GED. That is doing this, because I had those 3 things.
Leveraging that formula. Yeah.
Question around that. You've had these series of things you've created in different verticals.
Yep.
And like a lot of leaders, a lot of successful entrepreneurs would say, hey, focus on what you know. And you've like dove into various different things that presumably you didn't know a whole lot about before you got into it. How do you spot how do you decide I'm going to get into the mortgage and title business? Or how do you decide, how did you see the cardboard in the alleyway spilling out of the container and decide I need to start a recycling company that later became a $5 million exit? Like I think for a lot of us, that's a little bit baffling. Like, what's your decision-making process?
It's funny. I couldn't tell you that. And I'll tell you what I mean by that is, me and a friend needed money. We had the weekends, and he knew somebody that worked at Walmart. His dad was like the general manager, and they couldn't get rid of the cardboard in the back of Walmart. Like, it was stacking up. They had that baler and the wrap and it's back there. And my friend actually called around and found a place right here in Cincinnati that if you took it over and dropped it off, they'd pay you per the ton for cardboard. So we rented a truck, like one of those trucks, you know, the box truck with the thing that pops up in the back, you know, and goes up and down. And we rented a pallet jack, and we spent a Saturday going around to Walmart back and forth. We ended up making like 12 or $1,300, I forget what it was, for that Saturday after we paid for the truck, paid for the pallet jack. And then we started going around to all the Walmarts and so on and so forth. And 5 years later, we had 14 employees, and we were doing $5 million. And we had 2 alpha males though. So I ended up selling my half to my partner, and started in another business. And it was just what it was available. It was the mortgage and titling business. And that was where I grew from there. And I learned so much figuring out on the recycling side. And that was 96, and I sold in 2004. So that was 8 years later. I built it into me and a team, great people, built it into that. And then I had a friend that was in the state senate. Okay, not the big deal, but he was a state senator, and there was a lot of mold problems back then. Like they had some people dying from mold and stuff, and he's like, hey, because I was like, dude, I got a 5-year non-compete. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he said, well, we're trying to pass this law to where every house in Ohio, if it sells, they have to get a mold test. And he goes, he's actually just phrased to me, he goes, hey, if that passes, mold is going to be gold. And I was like, okay, yeah, had me. Yeah. So I opened up a mold company, which was Icon Environmental Group. And then I realized pretty quick that mold was not gold, but water was. So we changed it to Icon Property Rescue. And we went around and solicited plumbers. And all we did was plumbing business, because I've always been a profit first guy. And I wanted to make $1 million in taxable profit. I always say taxable profit because you can pull a financial report 10 ways to Sunday and get different numbers. Okay. At the end of the year, you can't argue what you filed taxes on. And we all try and cover up as much as we can: company cars, fuel, maybe some people mowing our grass. I mean, let's call it what it is, you know? So if I filed taxes on $1 million, that was undisputable. So I wanted to do $1 million because I had already sold the big business, and this is kind of what I wanted to live off of. So I didn't have to touch that money as much as I could. And it was about $3.5 million doing water damage, you know, and we went out and solicited plumbers, and I had 2 salespeople, and I think we were doing $3.5 million with 15 to 20 people, depending on, you know, when it was. And we were filing taxes on $1 million in profit, give or take, every year up until 2013. So
what I'm hearing you
got
say,
a little long-winded there. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Right. I think part of what I'm hearing you say is that you're just not overly romantic about the mechanism, because again, your profit, accountability, and culture. The reality of you could ultimately create those 3 things in whatever widget or service line you're providing, right?
Yeah, to that point, I'll tell you a funny story. My buddy who worked for me at he was one of my VPs at the mortgage and titling business. He saw an article in 2007 in USA Today, which was a big deal back then. You know, that was really, and he said, hey, I'm seeing that solar is coming to the Midwest. He goes, you want to go on partners with me? And I said, yeah. And we started a solar company and built it up to just shy of 10 million. You know, that was when we had to start hiring HR departments, which I do not do. That's when I realized once we do an HR department, I'm out. Okay.
That's your threshold.
I'm out. So, and that was at about 9.6 million, and sold it to another person and him. Like he brought in another investor, and they're doing great. So that's how I decided to get in the solar business, you know, and, you know, and so it's just kind of what opportunity presents itself, but it's all about those 3 things. It's all about, you know, the system, the culture, system. Got to have a system, because a great mentor told me one time, he goes, there's only 2 reasons that you have a problem in your business. And he was a real gruff, you know, you're an idiot, you know, if I'm an idiot type guy, you know what I mean? He had no problem calling me, that's just idiotic. Why are you doing that? and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But at the time, it was horrible. It seemed like. But he said, there's 2 reasons why you have a problem in your company. And I was like, oh yeah, what are those 2 reasons? And he said, you don't have a system. And then when you create the damn system, you're not holding anybody accountable to your system.
Oh man.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you will create a system for every problem you have and then hold people accountable to that system, you're going to do great. And I did that and I followed that. And that's why I say number 2 is your system. It's accountability.
Yeah.
It's really accountability to the system. There's always things you're changing and moving and stuff. But if people know they're going to be held accountable, they do better work, and they know, more importantly, I found, as long as the rock stars know you're going to hold other people accountable,
yes,
they'll still be rock stars.
Yep.
If they know that you're going to hold them accountable, but not other people, they start to slip because they're like, why am I working so hard when everybody else isn't? So
100%. Yeah.
And that was game changing for me. And fortunately, it was in my first business. And we did that, started doing that, started seeing the profit, and we had to rotate probably 60% of our people out because they didn't want to follow the system, So it was game changing. You just learn as you go, and then like, okay, so now if we have a problem, well, let's create a system. And then people aren't following the system, they either follow the system or they go away, because they should be making 20% more than, they can't go somewhere else and make more money if you're doing things properly. And that's number 1 is culture.
Yeah. So I want to validate this, because I think it's possible some people listening to this are like, holy shit, this guy has the Midas touch and everything just seems to fall in place. And I'm not sure how real what this guy is saying is. He's speaking a lot of sort of best practices, principles. But, when you talk about that whole accountability and the system and stuff like that, it reminds me when we visited Icon and you gave us a tour of Icon.
You guys were here for 2 days.
Yeah. We had no small amount of time on the ground with you guys. And I remember you talking about some of the systems and accountability you have at Icon. And one story in particular stood out to me. Well, 2 actually. One, I think I asked you about your after hours call system, which virtually every restoration company has some sort of system. We're a 24/7 industry. And I was just riffing with you about how that after hour system can be fraught with challenges and inconsistency, right? It's like somebody takes the bat phone home, so to speak, and they get out of cell range and they can't take the call, right? They end up going on a date with their wife, part of town, no cell signal, and they don't answer the call. And then that call gets dropped or whatever. Or somebody sleeps through the call, that kind of thing. And I asked you, I said, well, how do you guys handle that? Would you mind sharing your answer to that, of how you guys deal with on-call, both the system and the accountability measure?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. Well, we've got it set up. If you get a salary, you take a rotation in the phone, because we want people that work here every day to be part of that. And they rotate out. I think we have probably 14 people. So every 14th day during the week, which is Monday through Thursday, and every 14th weekend, you have the phones. And you get 1 write-up if you don't answer the phones. And then the second one is gone. I don't care how long you've been here. When we set that expectation, when we hire people, we are a true emergency service company. Don't make any plans. When you're going to be on call. You just don't make any plans, because you have to answer the phone. If you're taking a shower, it goes up on the towel. We don't care. It's like, there is no like, oh, I was this, I was that. It doesn't work here. You know the deal, and so on and so forth. I've literally fired somebody that got a second time that had been here 6 years. But what that does is it lets everybody else know that's our system. You hold accountability to it, period. That's who we are. They work for us. We don't work for them. And if their schedule doesn't work for us, they don't need to be here. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is as far as answering the phone. The other thing is we call womb to the tomb. From the time the phone rings, there's a system, there's a script, and they practice it. We go over it monthly, and we're constantly listening to phone calls with our team, with everybody that answers the phone. We're in here training. And if you don't like the way you answer your phone, and because it's going to be shown in front of everybody, like we're going to play the good and the bad. Okay. Because we want to pat people on the back too and go, listen to this call, man. Barbie did this one amazing. High five, Barbie. Let's give Barbie a round of applause. Because we want to applaud the wins too. Okay. So once the phone rings and it gets dispatched, they have to be on site in 59 minutes or less, period. But our guys sell the job. Like our lead technicians are trained and sell the job. And we've got, I mean, you guys were here, you saw our closing rate. It's 93%. We have a 93% closing ratio because if they don't close, and we track every month, we go over them with their closing ratio. And if you've got an 8 in front of your closing ratio, you're in some deep serious training. Okay. Until that comes up. It goes back because it's the law of averages. Sooner or later, if you stay in 80%, you're just not good enough, you know, and we're a sales organization that does restoration. Let's face it. That's what it is. From the time the phone rings to the technician showing up to the estimator, till the thanking them for the business and asking them for their check, we're telling them how amazing Icon is and Icon Property Rescue is, and one Tom Plumber.
Yeah.
We call it from the womb to the tomb, we're selling, period. Everybody's a salesperson here.
And I think it's important to draw a little bit of contrast too, or just because those things you just described are like very, very consequential to the business, right? Or after our call system. So I think even though some people hearing that are like, oh my gosh, that's extreme. It's like, well, it is a fundamental part of the business. So it's a big deal. Same with closing percentage and so forth. But I think I was really impressed or maybe taken aback a little bit at first. That systems and accountability goes all the way through your business.
It does.
And another story that you told was about your guys' standards in terms of even how your vehicles are parked and positioned in your parking lot. When people return, there's an end of day process. I think this is valid. Do you mind just describing that a little bit? Because
no, not at all. And what you're saying as far as our parking lot in the building that we have.
Yeah, when people come back from a job and so forth before they go home.
You have to back your trucks in because people driving by are going to look and see how your company, if you drive by a company that's got a, you know, the vans, they're wrecked, they maybe jacked up because they're changing a tire and stuff, and people see that driving by every day, are you going to want to use that company? But if you drive by a company that all the vans are clean and backed up and parked sequentially, you're going to want to use that company. You're going to think that's how they're going to treat my house. So it's all perception, you know, because that's most of selling is. And we get a lot of calls from people because they say, yeah, I drive by you every day. And if you drove by every day and it was junky, we wouldn't get those calls. So, but it's all how you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah. And from the, you know, and that's why we also do weekly inspections. But if I could go back to, because one of the big problems that some of my brothers in the restoration business have is getting people on those jobs to take the emergency service piece and stuff like that. Would you like me to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
How we solved that?
Yeah.
One thing we realized that we did was a lot of guys have their guys, like they pay them hourly to go to emergency calls. We pay $200 for the first 3 hours of any helper that goes to an emergency call. And people are like, hey, how can you afford to do that? How can you, well, when you're talking about water, I mean, it's 80% profit margin on water. How can you afford not to get people there and get them trained and do that? So we pay $200. It covers the first 3 hours. And after that, if we need them more, they always get time and a half, no matter if they're really get time and a half. But so we have people literally trying to take other people's on-call schedules, because if they get 2 or 3 calls, they made $600, you know, and sometimes they may not get a call, so they didn't make anything. So they're trying to work it out. So we actually never have a problem filling those slots for on-call.
Can I,
because of that.
There's something here that I think is really important that you're pointing to that I don't want to lose track of, because I think this is this kind of balancing act that most of us as entrepreneurs and key leaders get stuck in. It's this weird relationship to cause and effect, but we're making assumptions instead of living out experience. And here's what I mean by this. So you've already talked about 3 things over and over and over again, but then you get digging hard into this, drawing hard lines in the sand. Here's what I mean. You've dialed in on profit, accountability, and culture. And what's funny about that is I think in most cases, when we start talking about culture, it's not actually in direct relationship to the profit and accountability. And what I'm hearing you actually say is that what happens at Icon, for example, is that we establish clarity around the standards and deliverables. We hold the line very, very hard. And then because of that, we're able to pay our people a premium to have a spot on our team. And so I guess what I'm trying to highlight for people is this is the effect is coming from this idea of we're going to invest hard into culture. We're going to create clear lines and definitions of what winning looks like. And then we're going to be unapologetic on holding that line. And lo and behold, what happens? Better culture, higher accountability, higher profit, which I think most of us would struggle to connect the dot to.
Yeah.
And all of it is on the fact that you just continue to retain A players because they watch you towing the line on those standards. Is that fair to kind of like
it's very fair? And again, I don't mean to beat this point home, but you guys were here for 2 days. I shared my financials with you. I mean, we did $7.5 million last year, and I filed taxes on I wrote a check from Icon to the government for $460,000 that I paid in taxes because you know, we made $2 million. And I see financials all the time because of my one Tom franchise, where people are $30 million and they're barely breaking $1 million, you know, and you know, they focus too much on the top line. I'm okay with 7.5 million. And you know, when we're profiting 2 million, but that's how we can afford to do all those things. But it's getting people to buy in. And keep in mind, I'm talking a lot about accountability, but culture is also, you got to celebrate wins. Like when we go into the quarterly meetings, we call them all hands on deck meetings. All we talk about are wins. We celebrate people that have been here. I mean, like, you know, you see our jerseys. If somebody's been here 5 years or more, we got everybody's jersey on the wall with their name and a 5 by it or 10 or whatever. And we've got 43 employees and 26 or 27 of them have jerseys on the wall. You know, yeah. So, but profit, when we talk about profit, we don't go into a KPI meeting or monthly KPI meeting without profit being the very first thing we talk about every single time, period. Every single time, because everybody has to buy into the fact, is the company making money? Because if the company makes money and we're talking about profit constantly, that's the most important thing. Where your mind goes, where your energy goes, is where your body goes, you know. And if people are putting their energy and their mind towards the company making profit because I'm going to do better, that's where that's where they go. And it's just human nature, you know. It sounds simple, and it truly is once you get the right people. Okay. And that's the hardest part, is rotating people out. We always say good works down the road. Okay. We good ain't going to make it here. Good, because we gotta have rock stars. If we don't have rock stars, then that's the weak chain. So, and we rotate people out. But here's the thing too, our helpers, we don't, I think, get $22 an hour. Our lowest paid person here is $21 or $22 an hour. Okay, but that helper, but we can get better quality helpers with that. And you guys are in business. If you get a guy that's a 20%er is what we call it, because 80% of all work gets done by 20% of the workforce. That's a mathematical fact. Okay. If you get that 20%er, they do twice the work. So really you're paying an extra $5 an hour to get twice the work with the guy who comes in every day, keeps his truck clean, keeps his uniform clean, has a great attitude. I mean, you're paying 25% more to get twice the work. But you gotta stay the course. You cannot, like you just said, you can't you got to settle. You cannot settle, period. You have to rotate that person out and not be scared to get rid of good. We talk about it all the time with our franchises. If you're not afraid to get rid of good and to keep going until you get great, you're going to be really successful.
Well, this accountability thing, man, I just think it is so huge. And I think a lot of times as business owners, we don't know how far to take it. And we hear these concepts like accountability and culture. And we often, it feels sometimes like in order to keep the culture, everybody happy, loves the job, all that kind of stuff, that sometimes you have to get lax on accountability. And just really quick, that parking lot story, the thing that really impacted me is, you mentioned an example that had just happened a week or two prior,
Right.
where you had one of your either technicians or PMs or somebody come back
It
with
was a
truck.
water tech.
Yeah. They had hurried back from their last job. They had their kid's birthday party. They had to be home
Sisters.
for.
It was their sister's birthday party.
Okay,
Sorry.
you finish telling the story because
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
accountability-
Well, this is how this is how diligent we are about it. It was someone who'd been with me 3.5 years. He'd been out all night on a water call. He came in, he dropped his truck off, left it, and drove. And I happened to be coming in on a Saturday and saw it there. And I called him and said, "Hey, what are you doing? And do you run to the store?" And he's like, "No, I'm running to my sister's birthday party, and I'll be back in a couple hours, and then I'll finish up." And we are very strict about your job is not done until that truck is ready to go to the next job, period, and parked properly. And I was like, "Nope, you're turning around and you're coming back. Your job is not done until everything's finished." And he's like, kind of started getting sassy with me. And I was like, "Look, dude, if you're upset, I need you to find the closest McDonald's. I want you to pull into the McDonald's, run into the bathroom, look in the mirror and go, dude, you know the system. You know we hold you accountable to the system. Why would you try and cheat the system? But if you're going to get mad at me because you didn't do what you were supposed to, that doesn't work. That doesn't play for me. Okay. So if you're upset, you need to go and look in the mirror. Okay. Get your butt back here and do it right." And he goes, "Well, I'm not going to do it." And I was like, "Well, Monday will be your last day." And he's like, "What?" He goes, "I've been out all night and started doing that." I'm like, "You know what your job is. You knew that's the deal. You know that you're a 24-hour guy. And if your sister's birthday, you're supposed to tell her, I'll get there when I can. I'm working because this is my job. This is my career. This is what I've chosen to do for a living. So you do not pull that on me, dude. Okay. You either come back or Monday will be your last day." And he's been an unbelievable employee. But what happens is, guess what he was doing on Monday? He was bitching about that to anyone that would listen. And everybody is probably going, "Dude, that's so unfair, man. I can't believe you would do that." But secretly they're thinking, "Oh shit, I'm going to make sure
It ain't gonna be me.
yeah, I'm going to make sure that never happens to me." Yeah. And it works. And then you hold people accountable, and if you're paying more, they can't go somewhere else. And that's his choice. If he wants to take a pay cut and go somewhere else because he wanted to go to his sister's birthday party. And we do not compromise. Period.
I want to hang in that
yeah.
pocket for just a minute, Rocky, because I think as a third party, I want to validate something. When Chris and I were there, so we met your one Tom staff, obviously, and we met all of most of your icon staff and a lot of your leaders. And this was not the rule of an iron fist. There was not this negative vibe. There wasn't fear. There was no sense of do this or else or anything.
Nobody's rushing around, frantic. None of that.
No, there was not a vibe of chaos and fear in the business. And I'm just thinking to myself of how many companies we've been on the inside, to include ones I've been leading, and how often, even in this effort, in quotes, to produce a healthy culture, that somehow we ended up with a mix of fear or else. And so with as aggressive as you guys are at towing the line, there's this really healthy relationship with the bulk of your staff. Again, not necessarily even the tactic, but from your perspective, why is that happening? What's the connection between these clear expectations and actually a culture where people are not fearful at all about the standard?
It's a great question. And that is a little bit of a dynamic as far as you got to get better at that as you go along. I'm 58 years old. I've been in business since I was 23. I got better at it. I'll give you a great example. Like I said, in our quarterly all hands on deck meetings, we just talk about positive things. We pass away their little blue cones that are like, "I appreciate you." Blue cones is what, and we pass them out to everybody, and everybody talks about somebody that helped them, somebody that stepped up for them. Constantly, I just took 3/4 of the business to Norris Lake in Tennessee for 3 days. We rented literally 5 houses and took them down and team built and stuff like that. We kept the people with the least seniority behind because we still have to stay in business, but it was probably 2/3 of the people. we got a football game planned in October. We're taking people, down to Paul Brown Stadium and watch the Bengals play. As we work on the culture hard. And keep in mind, the accountability piece is a private setting. Okay, if he wants to tell people, it's up to him. I only held him accountable to himself. I would never do that in a public setting and humiliate him in front of people. I wouldn't want that. I don't do that to them. So the accountability piece is a private thing.
Yeah.
And if they want to tell people, it's up to them. But the culture is all about us. Like I said, am I my brother's keeper? We say that all the time. Am I ride or die? And if you're not, this isn't the place for you. But if you are, we got your back. We're not going to let the customer tell us what a bad person you are. We're going to have your back, even with the customer. Okay, because we know who you are. We know what kind of employee you are. We got your back. And so most of the culture stuff is done with everybody, and it's all positive, upbeat. The accountability piece is done one-on-one.
I think too, what I see is, and again, I don't know that I could point to an employee that said this verbatim by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just this idea of there's a lot of trust because they know where the lines are. Like there's no, they don't, I think one of the things that we see fear live inside these organizations so heavily is that it's because everyone's just not very clear on where the lines are. What is winning? What's losing? What's right? What's wrong here? It's all this kind of like, well, it's my perception or my interpretation. And I think that just creates way more fear than just this clarity on don't cross this line, period.
Yeah. And it's that, I'm sure he was trying to, back to your example, I'm sure he was trying to goat me into arguing with him. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Dude, look in the mirror. This is on you. It's not on me. The only time it got a little bit was when he said that I'm not going to do it, and that's when I said, well, then you don't belong here.
Yeah.
That's the only time. Other than that, I just kept pointing it back to him. And the policies, the procedure. You're the one choosing not to do this. Never got raised my voice, never got upset with him. I even said at one point in time, I'm really sorry that you chose to do this, because you probably would already be out of here by now and you'd be at your sister's birthday party. I don't let them, get me like that either. And that comes with time. It comes with practice. And then the profitability piece. We do KPIs. I'll give you a great example. You know this, but I leave 2 to 3 months in the wintertime. Okay. Yeah, I take some phone calls and stuff, but this company runs itself because of the accountability pieces and the womb to tomb program, system that we put into place. But I come back, honestly, I almost feel like they're sorry that I came back, because I'm like disrupting things. They're rolling it forward, and they all get along so well and they work as a team so well. When I come back, it kind of disrupts things a little bit, to be quite honest with you. But like, I'll give you one example. Our mold division leader, because we're very divisionalized. Okay, somebody's in charge, somebody's responsible. I don't let people go, oh, well, he did it or he did it. Nope, you're the division leader. We talk about 3 things. First and foremost is profit. And that's 50% of what his bonus is based on. And then the second thing is the top line revenue that they brought in. That's what a quarter of his bonus is based on. And then we talk about customer satisfaction. It's the third thing that his bonus is based on. We don't talk about anything else during our time where he's got to justify his existence here. And then we always end it with a fourth thing is, what can we do as a company to make your job better, to make us more money, to make you more money, to make everything flow better, to make your division amazing. That's the fourth thing we talk about. We always end those KPI meetings every month with that. And if they ask for something and it's reasonable, then it's our job to get it for them. That's how regimented we are as far as our monthly KPI meetings and our quarterly KPI meetings. And then their quarterly bonus is based on those 3 things. And that's it. Other than that, if something's going wrong, it's his job to fix it. We told him along the way, we don't do disciplinary in those KPI meetings at all. Those are when individual acts happen and we pull them in and go, why is this happening? Why isn't the equipment being cleaned? Why isn't this? Why isn't that? That's along the way. But the quarterly meetings is all about, how do we make things better? So, and that's just the way we do things. I'm not saying we're perfect. That we love when people come here. I go there for a day. to different places every year to twice a year, and we bring different people in twice a year because somebody's always figured out a better way for us to do stuff. Most of what you saw, I either had a mentor tell me, or I went to a location. Until COVID, I went to 2 restoration companies a year for an entire day, and then they would come here for an entire day. And now I'm down to, I've only done it like 3 or 4 times the last 2 since COVID. So I actually miss it.
You know, one of the things that I really stood out to us when we were on site with you is you're very unapologetic about the way that you've built Icon. And you know, I think for a lot of people, they heard you maybe mention it or tap this kind of 6.5, 7 million mark for your business, and how with that focus of profit, it's producing more than what a lot of $30 million operations are. But I think what I keyed in on is there's two stances that you have where you're not spending a ton of time or mental gymnastics battling this out. And that was, you're going to design a business to meet what you want. It's not even a need. It's, I want this business to look and act this way because it's what I want. The other thing is you're very unapologetic about your glaring weaknesses, those spots that you just know are a black hole.
I'm horrible at.
Right? And you just live those out. And so if you could, like, at a high level, because I'm just thinking, like, all our entrepreneurial listeners, they are acting as if, and we're pulled in this direction of we have to be everything to everyone. And that's just not really the truth. And so can you just, what established your conviction around building a business the way you want it versus what others tell you? And then this just unapologetic posture around where your core weaknesses are. Where's that come from? And how do you really live that out?
Well, I'll try and shorten it up as much as I can, because it's a 20-year history if we're talking about the restoration business. But we started out, like I said, we wanted to be a $3.5 million company, and we were just soliciting plumbers. Okay. And because I wanted to do $1 million in taxable profit, that's about it. Okay. Sometimes it took 4 million because so on and so forth. And then I'm in Cincinnati. Roto-Rooter is based in Cincinnati. They were one of my biggest clients, and they decided that they wanted to get into the restoration business. And I helped them do that. You know, I was business friends with the president of Roto-Rooter. And it was one of those things, you can make a whole lot of money for a little while, or we're going to get someone else in here, and so on and so forth. So I did it. And while I was there, though, I learned very much about how much commercial work they were doing. But I got diverted away because I was like, someone told me about this one magical world of TPAs. Okay. So I decided that you don't have to pay some plumber who pretty much acts like a whore. Sorry, my language, but where they're going to leave you for $25 and they've been sending you business for 2 years. And these insurance companies are just going to send you business, and all you have to do is a good job. Well, that's the way to go right there. So from 2013 to 2016, we went from 3.5 million to 6 million. My profitability went from about $1 million to 250,000. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so I remembered back in my Roto-Rooter helping them get up and going days that they were just bringing in tons of commercial work. And I was like, I want to do commercial work because insurance companies really aren't involved. Okay. It's not 100 grand or more. They pay out of pocket. So I created One Tom Plumber, and we literally took a whiteboard and said, everything that we make 60% on is on this line, and everything that we don't make at least 60% gross profit on is under this line. And then drew a line and said, these are the products that we sell. We're doing emergency service, we're doing mold, we're doing rebuild, but only rebuild if it's drywall, paint, and trim. We no longer want the emotion of kitchens and bathrooms involved. Okay. So, because once you started getting kitchens and bathrooms involved, the profitability went down, the emotion went up, so on and so forth. So, and that's what we focused on. And we went from 5.5 million to 6 million, I think, that year, and 250,000 profit to what you guys saw last year. We did 7.5 million. 5 million of that was water. 80% of it was commercial. And I filed taxes on just shy of $2 million because I gave out 150,000 in bonuses to employees. I would have been over the $2 million mark. And was pretty proud of that. So it took us 4 years, you know, and to grind it and get there, but we stayed the course. We stayed true to who we wanted to be. And it was just that simple. Then we rotated probably 60% of our people out. Well, not 60, probably 40% of our people out. Yeah. So
they couldn't toe that line. They weren't able to meet the standard. Yeah.
They weren't 20%ers.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about that and what that journey highlights is just if you are convicted to build what you want, right? Like I think so many of us start with this vision in our business. I mean, Chris and I clearly have one for Floodlight and where we're going. And I think so many of us just get caught up in this giant gap that exists between what we wanted and what we had hoped to create and what we feel like we've been left with, right? The reality check. And I think what I hear and saw from your guys' team is don't give in to that. Like you know, it's ultimately what we're living as entrepreneurs is a byproduct of either what we've allowed or what we've built. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, most of our companies have been created on the back of what we've allowed, not on this conviction of what we were building. And I think what we saw in Icon, and again, you don't have to agree with the methodology. It's not even the point. And if you want to be a $20 million revenue business for whatever
Absolutely.
reason, you make that happen. But I think what the opportunity is this: as an entrepreneur, as leaders, you can literally build what you want if you're convicted enough and you just don't give in to that path of least resistance. It is viable. You can do this if you're convicted and you execute.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, I don't know how many of your listeners know that I'm the founder of One Tom Plumber, the plumber whose name is his number.
Yeah.
We only sell to restoration companies. We're a bolt-on to restoration companies. Okay. I've been on one plumbing job. We started 3.5 years ago, franchising, and we are signing our 82nd franchise next week. And we're gonna for sure cross the $50 million mark this year, and you know, in our third calendar year open. So to your point, as long as you stay true to who you are, you keep your energy focused, and you don't try and be all things to all people, you're going to be really successful. Brian Mara, who owns Water Out in Pittsburgh, because we always have franchisees come here because we have Discovery Day. We have to show them who we are, and they're only restoration companies. So fortunately, I get to see 80 franchises or 80 restoration companies, how they work. I only mention him because I can't tell you how many times I've been with him, and I respect this guy so much that he only does water and he does some mold. Okay. And he always gets all the time, like, I'm with him. They're like, why don't you do rebuild? Why don't you do this and do that? He stays to who he is. All he does is water and mold. I think he did $6 to $7 million, and he made more than I did. So we're very competitive with each other that way.
Yeah.
And he whooped my butt, but he whooped my butt because he stayed true to who he was. Because it doesn't matter if you use 6 million or 40 million. At the end of the day, it's what's that bottom number say? And I always say it's a top number for us, because I'm not in. If I could give anyone a piece of advice, every financial report you get or every financial report you give to one of your employees, that profit number should be at the top. So we don't do QuickBooks. We do QuickBooks, but she has to put it into an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Because she has to move the profit number to the very top, because it's the most important thing. You'll be amazed at how your mindset change and how your employees' mindset change when profit consistently is the first thing you're looking at.
And it doesn't steal from the culture. Like, I think you guys proven that it's not a trade, right? It's not.
No. And then they know what's important.
Yeah.
You know, they focus on what's important at that point, and that's profit. You can't pay them more. You can't give them better uniforms, trucks, and so on and so forth if they're not making more money. If you're not making more money, then they get that. Yeah.
So I want to dig into the One Tom Plumber piece.
Sure.
Because you know, Brandon and I were pretty fascinated by the idea from the first time we heard, before we met you. And then subsequently, we've had our consulting clients, we've had a number of them buy One Tom Plumber franchises, and some now are actually continuing to expand and buy other territories and so forth. And, you know, working in our industry, there's a very high presence of franchise companies, franchise brands. and people have very mixed, it covers the gamut in
Yeah.
terms
Mhm.
of the support that they receive, how well that franchise is able to deliver on the promise or the vision that they cast. And consistently, I mean, without exception, actually, in our experience, with the clients that we have that have bought One Tom Plumber franchises to a T, they've all said it's exactly what we were told it was going to be, in terms of the support, the systems and processes, the follow through, all that kind of stuff. And so, Brandon and I have taken notice to that. We're like, okay, this is cool.
Well, that's high praise coming from you guys. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
you bet.
and,
'Cause you guys are just like me, though. I mean, you don't settle for second best. I love that about you guys.
yeah. We have high expectations, and we came to the discovery day, and that affirmed a lot of the things that we'd seen and heard. It did catch us off guard a little bit when you showed us your One Tom Plumber tattoo. We were like, whoa,
Wow, I love that.
we didn't know we were going to go there so soon in
Yeah.
the relationship,
Yeah, for people listening, that's on my right cheek. So I had to pull my pants down to show them the tattoo. And yeah, that's the only time I think you guys have blushed in probably the last 20 years. Yeah,
it's true.
yeah.
It was very fun. And we had a client with us at the next table over. And anyway, it was just, it was a great moment though, Rocky. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But can you talk about the system? And obviously you've been exposed to a variety of different businesses. You had an insider view of Roto-Rooter, consulting for them. When you guys set out to do One Tom Plumber, what were the things that were really important to you to build into the franchise, and then I guess wherever else you want to take it? But
yeah, love it.
Yeah, well, the most important thing was we wanted commercial work. We wanted to get in the commercial business. Okay. And the best way to do that is emergency and service plumbing. There's people that say they do emergency and service plumbing, but very few people actually do it. So that's all we do. We don't do rebuilds, remodels, build outs, anything like that. In fact, by contract, you're not allowed to do that. But we wanted to be like, I owned 3 of the 1-800 board up franchises. I owned Louisville, Cincinnati, and Columbus, and built it up same way, and ended up selling it off to one of my friendly competitors here in town. And I knew what I didn't get when I bought that franchise. Okay. All the pieces that I was missing. So I had that advantage. I saw the best of what Roto-Rooter was doing. So I had that advantage. So I wanted to take, and we failed early on with One Tom Plumber, just so you know. When we were doing a proof of concept, we had to shut it down twice because we had a master plumber that we brought in because we didn't know plumbing. Then we became like everybody else. And then we changed it and up our model and only did service, and still kind of like everybody else. And so we shut it down a third time and rebooted it as a water damage company that did plumbing. And once, because that was the system we knew, that's how to do it. And once we became that, and we went back to our roots, and in fact, One Tom Plumber is not a plumbing company. It's a sales organization. It's a sales system that happens to do plumbing. Okay. That bolts onto your restoration company. And truly, that's once we realized that we just need to be who we are, and this is what we need to focus on, and how do we draw business, bring business into the restoration company. And it was commercial work. That was a first to market concept, and like I said, the $5 million in water we did, 80% of it is commercial, which means rarely do we ever even have to talk to an insurance company. It was just game changing for us. And I'll tell you a funny story. It was never a franchise to be. I just wanted to improve on Icon and get Icon into the commercial space. And we were growing so fast that we hired Chuck DeWald from the Drying Academy and his team. And we actually hired him to come here because we didn't have time to go to his Drying Academy. And while he was here, he was kind of walking through and seeing everything. And Chuck, Chuck, he carries a baseball bat around. He's the college baseball player. And he can call his Woolby because he teaches with this baseball bat, and he's doing this, that, and the other. And he's like, dude, if you don't start sharing this with other people in the restoration business, I'm going to freaking take this bat to your head. He goes, I see all these other restoration companies, dude. They need this. They need this system. They want to, Belfour. I mean, why does Belfour get to own the commercial biz space? I can't get over how you guys are killing it. And Chuck and I have that relationship where we tell each other what we're thinking. And he basically, I'm not positive he wasn't joking. You know, if you know Chuck, there's a good chance he could have taken that baseball bat to me, you know, because he's about the most passionate person I know about water damage, truly.
Yeah.
And so I started talking about it, and then I still own the 1-800 Packouts franchises at the time. And so I went to Bart, who's a great brander of things. He just doesn't understand what support means, okay, when you support your franchises. But I took it to him and said, hey, what do you think? Do you think this is a play? And he ended up trying to buy it from me while I was there. So I knew I had something. So we hired a few consultants and franchised it 3.5 years ago. And our whole goal was to do 5 a year. Like, we thought if we could do 5 a year, we're going to be walking in high cotton. And like I said, we're 3.5 years in, and we're signing our 82nd, and we've got 3 people that we're scheduling to sign Maryland, Pennsylvania, and somewhere else. Like, so we'll literally finish the month at probably 86 franchises. It's crazy.
That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
You have a super young team too. I mean, when we're on site, like, everybody in the business is generally fairly young. There's a lot of creativity, a lot of leaning into technology. Your guys' social media presence is super interesting. A lot of the videos that we had an opportunity to check out are just fun and totally relevant, but you guys really leaned into this social media forward brand and presence. There's just a lot of creativity and energy behind it. From a cultural perspective, like, what are the things that you've brought in and deployed from your previous experience? I mean, I'm sure the parallels are numerous, but what were kind of those fundamental things right from the gate that you planted the flag on?
Are you talking about our franchisees or One Tom Plumber or Icon?
Yeah, I would say the model with One Tom, like, because you guys built a very specific model that, again, you hold the line on very intensely.
Yeah. One of the things I think the big misconception is that we're selling everybody. We have a 42% turndown rate. Okay. We're turning down 4 out of every 10 people that send us their financials. We've turned down $30 million companies, not because, and it's good, plays in the culture, not because they weren't financially feasible. Obviously they were. They didn't fit our culture. And we're a team. You know, it's the same thing as my brother's keeper. And we say that, I think I said that to you guys when I was talking to you guys about it. We want networkers. We want people who are not only going to want their business to be better, but we want people who are going to, if someone calls them and says, hey, how are you doing this? How's your sales team killing it so much? That you'll take the time and help them. But it needs to be reciprocal. So we want a network across the country of networkers that are going to help each other become better, because truly. So the number one thing that we look for is fit. Now, obviously you have to be financially capable of, you know, because it's expensive to start up a plumbing company that within a year, you're going to have 6 trucks rolling on the road, you know, so but most of the time the bank takes care of that. But my long-winded point is you got to be successful. You got to be forward thinking. But secondly, you got to have an ego on the side. You got to help each other. You can't get help from someone if you don't tell them your problems, you know, and say, dude, I'm struggling with the sales thing. I don't know what the heck to do, you know, and get that better. So we're really looking for a network across the country of like-minded restoration professionals that want to get into the commercial space, because that's what we are. We're a commercial play. We're going to get restoration companies into the commercial space. And we've been obviously very successful at that. So that you got to want to go that way, and you want to be water centric. If you're not water centric, One Tom Plumber is not the place for you. If you want to do more rebuilds, you know, we're not the place for you. So we're very careful about who we bring on board, but once we bring them on board, we'll move heaven and earth for them. You know, like you said, you talk to the guys, we'll give you all the support you need. We'll talk to you every day if we need to. We'll get you up and going. We're going to make sure that it's a smooth transition and that your restoration company is thriving because of One Tom Plumber, you know, and that you're going in the direction you want because of that. Did that answer your question?
It did, yeah, and all of 100%. I mean, for those that maybe don't understand the connection, so Chris and I, in full transparency, have very seriously been considering the participation in a One Tom partnership, and we were being vetted as part of our visit. And it was a true being vetted scenario. There was lots of time for conversation about getting to know us personally and what we would be bringing to that relationship. It wasn't just financials and, business prowess. It was very much culture fit, relational fit. And I really appreciated that. I think if anything, and again, this isn't a pitch fest for One Tom, I just think that it's pointing back to this theme throughout the show is when we are committed to experiencing what we want and towing the line that gives us the environment that we want to live in and exist in, it's amazing the kind of business and the world and the friendships that you begin to establish. And you guys are 100% committed to that on the One Tom side, totally unapologetic. And it was at the forefront of most of the 2 days we were with you and us being tested on whether or not this would be a relationship you guys would want to invest in. And I just think it's fucking rad, to be honest.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, thank you. That's high praise. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah. And I actually just want to speak to the sales component because, a lot with our consulting clients and with my background in the industry, one of the things we spend a lot of time teaching restoration companies how to sell commercial. And one of the tools that Brandon and I utilized and exploited was a carpet cleaning division, a floor maintenance division, as kind of our tip of the spear into commercial accounts. And
it's wonderful.
Yeah, it works fantastic. And so when I heard about this One Tom model, I thought, well, first of all, I was a little bit jealous because one, plumbing is one of those functions that every single property management company, hotel group, senior living group, all of the key verticals that any restoration company, if they're going after commercial, is chasing, all of them routinely need emergency plumbing, of course, right?
Yeah.
Not all of them budget or prioritize their floor maintenance, which we learned. And so I have seen subsequently with these clients of ours that have brought on One Tom Plumbers, immediate success in commercial accounts that they'd been cultivating and chasing. Now all of a sudden they have a now offering that they're able to provide, a now offering where when I think of one of our clients in North Carolina right now, I was on a sales call with their team and he was just describing to me what the reception has been when he started co-presenting One Tom Plumber and their particular restoration brand. And he's just like immediate openness. Oh, you guys do plumbing. Oh my gosh, 24/7. Oh man, I could definitely use that. Right. And it was just an immediate open door. And so it's not to say that everybody has to have, a plumbing business attached to the restoration, be successful in commercial, but it is proving to be a fantastic tip of the spear for that reason is that so often I think the uncomfortability that sales reps have in our industry is you never quite know if you've made the sale until that phone rings.
Yep.
Right. And it's a very sort of odd and frustrating aspect to our industry. And I think whether it's floor maintenance or some other now service you can package for your clients or it's plumbing,
to your point,
greases the wheel.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. To your point, if you don't get business for them in 2 weeks in the plumbing side, because everybody needs emergency plumbing, especially these big property managers, it's not your account. Get your butt back in there and sell it. This way, I mean, you might not know for a year and a half whether this Cushman Wakefield building is going to flood or not. Within 2 weeks on the One Tom Plumber. But to your point, I don't want to oversell. I wasn't really even planning on talking about One Tom Plumber, but what people don't realize is that piece is actually more profitable than my restoration piece. Like that was like that was the golden goose. I had the goose that was getting me into the commercial. I'm like, what? This is actually more profitable by percentage. I'm like, okay, well, let's do more, and it just kind of took off like we were talking about earlier. I wasn't really planning it. Just put my mind to it, put a system in place, got the right people and never look back.
We've had a client, I'm gonna protect his name, but he literally sometimes will be like, yeah, man, if I was doing it all over again, I think I would just run the plumbing.
Just do the One Tom Plumber.
Validating what you're saying.
Don't out him. He'll be here next week for our national convention. So he's
super rad. It's just
Yeah.
funny to hear him talking about his relationship to the program, because he's definitely
Well,
seeing the win. So
yeah, but back to the restoration piece too. I have people come here all the time. I'll be happy to get on the phone with anyone, and schedule some stuff up. But I don't mind. I'm a huge advocate of the restoration business. That's why I've done what I do. That's why I've kept this business. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary, is because I love the chaos of the restoration business. And it's what I was built for, honestly. I just absolutely love. So I would help anybody out there any way I can within time restraints. But I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody if they want to go through you guys to do that.
One of the things I was thinking about, Rocky, and we'll tee this up later. I'll have, I think Chris will chase you down for it. But one of the things that we found super interesting, we don't have time to get into now, but was some of your pay models. And of course, state by state, to be very cognizant that we can't just all do the same thing. But I really did appreciate the way you thought through some of that. So one of the things I had in the back of my mind is I would love to tee up a webinar and have you lead us on those.
Sure.
I think there was like 2 or 3 different kind of models that you used within your organization, just to give people a perspective of what else is an option. I think that the participation of that would be super high, because you are doing some creative things on the pay side that allows you to pay very well. Substantially higher in most cases than most people we know. But there's still this really interesting accountability element that's attached to it, which we just think's awesome. So anyways, that'd be something I think would be fun, and I think the listeners would love.
I'd be happy to host a bunch of your clients if you ever wanted me to. I can't get over how quick. I know you're talking about me, and I'm and thank you for that, because obviously I'm very shy and don't really like talking about myself.
Yeah, clearly.
Clearly. But I've been super impressed. Like I said, we vetted you guys hard. Like, we even call suppliers to see how you guys treat them, because how you treat them is how you usually treat everybody. You treat us. I can't get over the growth you guys have had. I mean, you guys are doing something amazing. I'm sorry about this, but I'm super impressed with you guys. That's why I couldn't wait to get on this podcast, because what you guys are doing and how you're changing the restoration business, honestly, is commendable. And I've asked you guys questions too. I can always learn from everybody. I'm not doing it perfectly. I pick your brains all the time, or not all the time, but regularly, on how you're doing things. So kudos back to you guys, and anybody listening. I'm telling you, these guys can help your business do better, way better, more profitable.
Thanks,
so
appreciate
it. Thank you for jumping in on our industry and helping everybody, because we all need help.
Amen.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, from cardboard recycling to butt tattoos to pay scales and so forth. Like,
there's the name of the show, guys. From cardboard to butt tattoos. There we go.
And I'll pay for any one of your listeners to get a one Tom Plumber plunger butt tattoo. That's on me. Okay. There's going to be a line out the door. You guys know that, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Post it to Instagram.
That's right.
Get paid.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, man, we appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. It was a good chat, and we know we'll have more to follow, man.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I can't wait to see you guys.
Yeah. Awesome.